So nice to see you. Oh, I gotta adjust my screen here so I can see more people here. Go to gallery. Oh, terrific. Just real quickly want to thank everyone so much for joining us on this beautiful fall day. If you don't know what you signed up for, I always feel like there's somebody who doesn't know what they signed up for. But if you don't know what you signed up for, in a moment, we're going to be joined by Barton Seaver, who is the author of several great seafood cooking and reference books. But one we're going to be talking about this evening is The Joy of Seafood. We're going to be preparing two different dishes. And Sigrid from Easterly Wines will be joining us to go over the beautiful Chardonnay that we have here as well. Hey, Barton, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry, absentee guest is always great.
I was like, wait, he was just in his box a second ago, and then he ran away. So I was just thinking while Aisha was playing the music, I think the first time we met Barton was right there, maybe almost 6 years ago. Is that close to accurate? 5 years ago? You were up in Orono talking at the grad school, I believe. And then you came in with your family and some friends for dinner. And to this day, the coolest business card anyone has ever handed me, the National Geographic business card that says fellow on it. And I still have it because I'm always amazed that I met somebody from National Geographic that's a fellow. So if you ever need the coolest business card, you own that right, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
So this is our second time doing something, first time doing something virtually together. But I think this is great because normally we would just have a pairing dinner and everything else. But this is kind of fun because we get to learn from the master of how to cook seafood and hopefully just get a little bit more comfortable with cooking seafood. Because I think that's the big thing is it's a mental roadblock for a lot of people.
Certainly, yeah. It's an unfortunate one at that because it really is one of the very easiest things to cook, and we'll go over a whole lot of that. But as we get into the evening's proceedings here, please feel free to chime in with questions about anything and everything relating to cooking. I'm a chef educator. I've written a lot of books, and I'm doing this because I really love interacting with people. Also, I really particularly love Mainers, so it's good to be in a room with all of y'all. So no question off the board here. So whatever we want to talk about, we've got a couple of very simple, straightforward seafood preparations for some of Maine's very best seafood, and some great wines and some good pairings, and hopefully you all meeting some good friends too. So cheers.
So what do you say we jump right in the Aisha, for people who've done these virtual events with us before, Aisha is joining us. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat box. Aisha will monitor that for us. I think there's also a way to raise your hand and we'll call on you if you want to ask it verbally, or if it's something that needs immediate attention, just unmute and say help, and we'll make sure that everybody is staying up to date and current. If that's cool with you, Barton, does that work?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we are going to start with the mussels. Which
we're already starting. Okay, sure.
Is that good, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay.
I like to be told what to do. I'm just
awesome.
Receiving information. So
that's good because I enjoy telling people what to do. So you and I are going to get on great.
Cool.
So we're going to go to page 281. I feel like I'm at church. Please turn to page 281. Alternate reading. Who are we kidding? I don't know the last time I went to church, but yeah, and feel free, open your bottles of wine that you have there. I did make a note that when the recipes call for wine, this may not be the best wine to cook with, but I also think you should cook with quality. Just like your ingredients, your proteins, in this case, the mussels and the scallops are quality and fresh. So I guess there's something to be said about using quality wine as well. You don't ever want to use stale wine or anything, that's because that also will affect the taste. Would you agree with that, Barton?
I do. Yeah. I don't ever cook with anything you wouldn't drink. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to cook with the very best thing you'd ever drink. And this bottle of wine is pretty special. I've opened it up and quite enjoying it. It's like a perfect blend of neutral oak and new oak, and it just, to me, it's a very good representation of what Chardonnay can be. And as most of I'm seeing here, it looks like couples. So we're talking about a half cup of wine. So it's not a entirely unreasonable sacrifice to the quality of a dish to cook with this, as I will be doing, because it's just me drinking a bottle of wine tonight on a Monday. Yay. So
challenge accepted.
Yeah, it might actually be a benefit to me to be cooking with some of it. So I'll leave that to you.
So I think everyone should be at page 281 here. We're using some mussels that were farmed on Friday in Bar Harbor. I always have trouble with the name of the company. It's a long Dutch name. But they're right out of Bar Harbor. We have their mussels here in the bistro. We get them in once or twice a week. So they're never more than 3 or 4 days old, which is a huge benefit of living in Maine, right? You don't need to have seafood that's touching a lot of hands. We buy it right from the farm, just like we do our oysters, which is
we do. Yeah. So to any of y'all who think I'm being disrespectful, I'm actually looking, I actually all of my copies of Joy of Seafood to Bob today. So he, it was kind of to text the recipe. So I'm just looking at it to make sure that I don't get it wrong for you. So, but do y'all want a little introduction first, or let's do the mussels. Let's do the mussels, because then we can start eating the mussels and everybody can be happy and drinking the mussels. And so, all right, shall I take it away?
Please.
All right. So mussels to me are one of my very favorite things. To me, it's like the omelet. It is where everything else in your refrigerator goes to shine. Do you have like a half tablespoon of mustard left in that jar? Great. Guess what? It goes awesome with mussels. Do you have 2 scallions left over from that bunch you bought for something else? Awesome. Do you have some herbs? Whatever it is, literally anything in your fridge goes well with mussels. So to me, it's like this perfect vehicle to use up whatever. And do the ingredients taste good to you? And do they make sense in combination? Well, great, because then they're going to go awesome with mussels. So the other thing I really love about mussels is not only is it this way to utilize sort of whatever we have on hand and get very creative with flavor combinations in ways that I think make a lot of sense. They're also as about sustainable of a food source as we can get in terms of climate change and carbon neutrality. They're not sustainable. They're actually restorative. They do better for our environment than we do. So eating them is an act of kindness to the entire planet. Eating them is also obviously a delicious act. And here in Maine, I think we have the very best mussels grown anywhere on the planet. There are some very, very good producers working everywhere. But in fact, Maine, from Bangs Island to Pemaquid to de Kooning to other producers, I believe it's the de Koonigs that you have tonight. I've got some Pemaquids, but across the board, bottom line is Maine makes the very best mussels in the world, in my opinion. So mussels, when you go to cook them, so you've got either a 2 or 4 pound bag in front of you. So I've got the 2 pound bag. And when you open them up, or when you buy them, the first thing you want to look for is that the mussel shells look moist. If they're, sorry, I have a camera on my phone here that responds to my gesticulations. So if something weird happens or you see me doing weird hand motions, it's me trying to control technology, which I am epically bad at. Anyway, back to the mussels, which I do believe I actually am pretty good at. So the first thing you want to look for is that the shells are moist. I mean, these are creatures that live in the water. They do arrive to us live. So the conditions that kept them alive in the water should be as close to mimicked out of the water. If you see any that are broken, such as this one here, obviously broken, you want to toss those. If you see any that have just a bare gap in them, if you can see that there. So the thing you want to do is just give them 2 gentle and respectful taps, 3 taps, whatever. If they close, as this one has, if it closes, as this one has, well, then that mussel is still alive. It's still in very good condition. So you want to search through your mussels, and in Maine, honestly, you're very likely to get very high quality mussels wherever you shop for them. I get mussels at Shaw's pretty regularly, not using them as the least common denominator, but it, mussels really are a high quality product wherever you get them here. So if you see the byssus or the beard, let's see, where can I get that? So you get that, the background here. Do you see that little piece of sort of string hanging off there? I'm trying to backdrop it with my forehead, with my,
Yes, I see it.
yeah, with my Maurice Sendak was asked to draw a demented artichoke of a haircut. Yeah, anyway, there you go. So if you see any of this byssus, also the beard, that's what they use to attach to the ropes that they're grown on. The ropes or the rocks or the pilings on piers, etc. That's what they use to attach. You don't really want to use this. Why? Well, because NASA is actually putting several tens of millions of dollars into studying this fiber. Why? Because it's I think 25 times stronger than Kevlar. Yeah. So they're looking into uses for it, like in all sorts of space stuff. Bottom line is, even your digestion can't do that. So just grab it with with 2 fingers and pull directly away from the mussel. Let's do that again. So I've got that here, 2 fingers on it, pull straight away from the mussel. Sometimes, wow, mussels fighting back, it's embarrassing me. Remember when I said I know what I'm doing with mussels? I went through and cleaned
a lot of the mussels that we gave out today.
Okay.
It's kind of therapeutic for me. I get to put a podcast in and clean mussels, so it's
okay.
It's like one of the jobs I enjoy doing. But
okay. So if you see any more in there,
yeah,
just pull them straight out like that. So, all right. So there's that. So I'm going to now move over to the stove. So I'm going to just pick up my camera here, move you over. Is everybody good? Everybody's feeling okay with the angle of the camera and how you're seeing things?
It's great.
Cool. Okay, so I think, nope, I didn't. I just turned the camera off to that. So I'm doing weird hand motions to the camera now so that I can do this. Watch this. Oh, cool. Okay, now I'm going to turn it off. All right, there we go. So I've got a pot of chicken stock going in the back of my stove here because I cooked dinner for my family earlier tonight. Let's see, I'm going to move the camera. Sorry, folks. This is all new technology to me. All right, there we go. So turn my burner onto high. I've got a nice little Staub dish here. This is a 2-quart dish here. Anything will work though, including just a saute pan, anything that you can put a lid on. All we're doing here is sauteing the mussels with the aromatics. And as soon as those aromatics and mussels go in, they begin to sizzle, they begin to steam. And those mussels, which are full of natural liqueur, just as an oyster is, as soon as you shuck it and present it on the half shell, those mussels have that same liqueur inside of them. So that's going to leach out and that's going to begin to create the steam process. So first up, we've got a couple tablespoons of butter. And what butter do I use? I use Kate's butter. I don't know what you gave out or if you did give butter, but Kate's is a really great Maine brand and their butter is really, really very good. And the way I see it, if you're going to use butter, make it good butter, right? I mean, make it an enjoyable experience, especially if you're going to feel guilty about using the butter. And in this recipe and the next recipe for the scallops, which is really more of a technique recipe than anything else, that butter really does, I mean, it adds so much to the flavor. And that's really what we're talking about here. So grab this. So Bob, what are the ingredients in this? We've got some thyme,
lemon zested,
cool,
white wine.
All right.
fresh herbs, such as
Right.
chive and parsley.
Cool. So I've got 1 lemon here. I've got the butter going, 1 tablespoon or so in the bottom because I'm just cooking 2 pounds of mussels. So when you zest a lemon, if you don't have a microplane in your kitchen, I recommend that you have one. It's one of the tools that I use the very most, and it's so effective at what it does that it renders all other methods of zesting kind of obsolete. I did see a question pop up in the chat. What temperature am I using? Which high heat to start off with. And when you're zesting something, unless you're zesting it directly into the pan, which you can do with basically the blades up, try doing it this way so that the zest collects within sort of the non-blade side of that, so that once you are done collecting, once you are done zesting all the way across, what do you have? You have all that zest collected right there, and you can do this. Add it in. Got your thyme sprigs, throwing those in there, and now those mussels. Oh, one more beard there. Suggest maybe you use a stirring utensil, but this works perfectly well because hands are, in fact, the most useful kitchen tool ever created. So don't underestimate the value of them. So as soon as you throw those in, you'll begin to see them open up after about a minute or so. And you'll notice that the whole pan is beginning to fill up with steam. And it's that liquor that's coming out of those mussels. By the way, and I didn't say this before, but any mussels that are open that you get, and Bob has taken care of this for you, but any mussels that you get that are open from the store, just discard those. Well, in a 2-pound bag of mussels, you're like to see maybe 1, maybe 2, at worst 3 or so mussels that have opened. And that just means that the animal has died and you don't want to eat it. So I've got the butter, I've got the thyme, and I've got the lemon zest in there on the bottom. I threw the mussels on top on high heat. And as soon as those begin to open, which is about now, I am going to throw in the white wine. And again, this is a very, very tasty white wine. I recommend you drink it. If you have a box of wine or something sitting around for Monday nights, maybe use a half cup or a cup of that, but I'm going to add this in. And I'm actually going to move this onto a back burner. This is my lowest heat burner here. So I'm going to put that on the back burner, about a half cup. I added in because I'm just doing 2 pounds of mussels here. Put the top on.
Where did you go to school for culinary, or did you go to school?
So I came up through the ranks in DC, and then I went to the Culinary Institute of America. Graduated and then ended up teaching there for several years as a graduate teacher in the meat and fish departments. So teaching butchery and identification, and then lived and worked all over the world. And I was living in Spain after I worked as a fisherman in Morocco and down into Senegal for a while. And then I was a chef, working as a chef in Spain when a gentleman named Jose Andres, a chef that now goes by the name Jose, founder of World Central Kitchen, amongst several dozen restaurants at this point, called me in Spain and said, come back and run my flagship for me. So I did. I did that for a while, right when Jose was really becoming himself. And if any of you don't know World Central Kitchen, please, please, please look them up. They're doing incredible work. They were the group behind feeding refugees from Ukraine when that conflict started, Haiti after the earthquake several years ago, and Puerto Rico after the hurricane several years back, et cetera. But look them up because they're using food to its utmost and ultimate power, which is to heal communities, not just bodies. So
They
that's
have
a bit
there's
of
a
my
great
story.
documentary on Jose and the World Central Kitchen. I think it's on Apple TV, or Disney. It's Disney, and it's called We Feed the World. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Ron Howard was the
Yeah.
producer on that. So, all right. So, checking our mussels. If you pull the pot top off, you'll see that I can probably show you this. I'm now, oh yeah, look at that. So about 60% or so have opened, and those shells have popped open. And what's really the key to knowing that the mussel is beginning to cook is that it's pulled, the meat has pulled away from one side of the shell so that it's now sort of cupped on one side. That really tells you that that meat is cooked, that the animal was healthy and alive when going in. So probably just one more minute there, and I've got a little bit more butter. And in case y'all are feeling like maybe I've been very generous with the butter, yeah, welcome to restaurant cooking. Guess what? Butter makes things taste good. This is why I use good butter, though, because great quality butter like Kate's or Plugras or Kerrygold or Vermont Creamery, you know what? I mean, a tablespoon of that is worth eating. It is. It's just worth eating. I mean, a tablespoon of whatever else, you know, is available and constantly goes on sale at the store. Like, yeah, is it fatty? Yes, it's fat. It's butter, but it doesn't bring that flavor and that joy and that deliciousness that good quality butter does. So, you know what? I don't spend $3 a pound on butter. I spend $6 a pound on butter, and I'm okay with that. And I use about half as much butter because of that, because the flavor is just there. And I'm also supporting, you know, food systems that I want to support, that I think should exist and endure, that treat animals with respect, etc., and create great quality products. So all of that is important. And you know what? I mean, I've got two kids, two very young children. I got a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. We're on a budget, but butter is one of those things that I believe is worth spending money on. So my pot is boiling away. I can see it sort of rippling up steam around the sides here. I'm going to turn off the heat at this point because things are, you know what? I mean, look at this. Like, that's a lot of heat. Things are cooked in there. So I'm going to add those 2 more tablespoons of butter or so. I'm going to add a little bit of salt, because even though mussels come from a very salty environment, sometimes that broth needs just a little bit more seasoning, especially because you're adding the wine in, you're adding the butter in. And I used unsalted butter all the time. The reason why is that unsalted butter gives me control as to how much salt goes into something. And sometimes it needs it. And I've got some just chopped herbs. This is actually a salsa verde that I made for my kids' dinner tonight, because I roasted a chicken. This is actually the second. I've already cooked dinner and cleaned the kitchen once to be back with you. I've put the 2-year-old to bed. The 6-year-old is upstairs watching some Star Wars, something or other, probably. And I'm here with you, and I'm very happy about it. So, but just a couple of tablespoons of chopped fresh herbs in there. And there you go. And one of the things I like very best about mussels is putting your face on a mussels, putting the pot on, and then just be like, yeah. You know why? Because yes, because it's absolutely delicious and it's amazing. And there you go. So that is our steamed mussels, and that is as simple of a dish, a preparation that I could have made for you. As I said at the outset of this, with mussels, do you have that tablespoon of mustard left over? Do you have a single bay leaf? Do you have a couple of sprigs of mint from that box of herbs you bought, or a sprig of rosemary? Like literally whatever it is, guess what? it's going to go well with mussels. Even red wines go very deliciously with mussels. I mean, think about a nice autumnal dish of some roasted garlic and a nice light, bright red wine, like a domestic Pinot Noir or something. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Like, this makes me happy, right? So there you go. That's our first dish.
Curry. I had some leftover curry from some Thai food, and we made curried mussels. That was amazing last weekend.
Nice.
Like, felt like I was cheating somebody on that. It was great.
Anybody have any questions on this? I don't see anything in the chat, but please do feel free to drop any questions in, and then I have something lovely to show you.
How does people's mussels look? Can we move some cameras or hold mussels up? Like, I saw Chris, I think it was Chris back there, lifted his pot at the same time you did, Barton, and a bunch of steam came out. So that makes me feel. Jeff and Jenny.
Nice. Bouchards. I hesitate to say plural there, but nice. That looks good. Ooh, nice cookware too. Oh man, you even got a water.
John, that looks nice.
Nice. Y'all have some nice kitchens I'm seeing here. All right, the Mitchell family, Christopher Mitchell,
designer, Barton. So if you need anyone to redo your kitchen, Jenny can help you. I would expect her kitchen to have a nice hood system and the water filler and everything.
Okay, well, yeah. Whoever that man she has cooking next to her, it like looks better in a t-shirt than I do. I mean, he's like the definition of muscles here. There you go.
He's a truck driver. So
awesome, y'all.
So I'm going to call you from now on, Jeffrey, is a truck driver.
So I had this one tiny little mussel. So I'm just going to hold it up to like my cheek maybe because I can't see it. Like I had this one tiny mussel that showed up in my bag of mussels here, and it steamed open perfectly, and it's like this tiny beautiful thing. So tiny beautiful something. So that's another thing is if you're not into wine, which if you're a fan of Novios, I can't imagine you not being, but so my beloved wife Carrie, is the creative director up at Maine Beer Company, and which happens to be a mile from our house, which is wonderful. But mussels and beer are an incredible combination, especially a lighter, brighter, some of the really super dense hoppy beers can compete a little bit with sort of the light, briny, savory flavors of mussels. But something like their beer, a tiny beautiful something, lunch, peeper, are particularly good with seafood. They match that briny salinity very well. So
what do you think about using like an amber? Like they have I think it's Red Wheelbarrow or whatever their amber is. What do you think about like something like an amber or a stout? Are you a fan of using the darker beers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, stout, take a little packet of foil, take a head of garlic and a couple of shallots and a tablespoon of butter, and then wrap that all up, maybe 2 layers of foil, throw it in your oven at 300 degrees for 2 hours. So you have these beautiful, just succulent, sexy, rustic, robust flavors of roasted garlic and shallot. Pair that with a stout, squeeze the garlic out and the shallots into a pan with a little bit of butter, put a little bit of stout in there, maybe a sprig of fresh rosemary and some mussels. Woo, man, like you're talking sexy right there. That's just good. That's just good eats. So
I'll tell you, when we entertain at the house, we don't have a lot of friends. In all honesty, we don't have a lot of friends, so we don't have a lot of people over very often. But when we do, we often do mussels because it's so great just to have a big bowl of mussels. Even if you're doing, 6 pounds or 8 pounds of mussels for 5 people, and you just throw it in there with a bunch of bread and a salad, it makes it so communal and fun because you're just kind of standing around a bowl, eating mussels, throwing them back in. It's I think it's
and that's one of the things that I love the most about mussels is the impracticality of them when it comes to we think so often about convenience in America, and mussels are aside from like the purchasing of them, the storage of them, the convenience of cooking them. But like, I challenge you to be greedy while eating mussels. Like, you
Yeah.
cannot eat but more than one bite at a time. And it forces us to slow down. It forces us to eat literally bite by bite in this very mindful way. And what happens when you eat bite by bite slowly around a table with other people? You actually start talking to them.
Yeah.
And what isn't that a gift? I mean, even for for those that have been married forever, we've been married 13 years, and like, what a gift it is to have something that slows us down, to remember each other, and like, oh, by the way, mussels will do that and deliver from the culinary sense. Like, this is awesome. So
Yeah. And you can't use your phone when you're eating mussels because you have to use your hand to do it. So you have to
I
put
hadn't
your
thought
phone
about it that way,
down.
but
You have
yes.
to use your hands. You have to talk. I think we're on to something. Maybe more mussels is what we need.
I will say though that when I met my wife and we were first in that, like, over the rainbow phase of dating, she would always call me. I was in restaurants at this time. She would always call me like right in the middle of butchery hours. And so like, I would be elbows deep in bluefish and like all sorts of stuff. And she would call and I would just pull the phone out and be like, oh, hi.
This is
And
normal.
I literally had to trade in it would, like, at the time I had a Palm Treo, for any of you who had a Palm back in the day, like, that was the ringtone. I literally had to trade it in because it smelled like fish. And I was okay with that because I was talking to my wife. So.
Yeah. The Greg and Betty Jameson added into the chat that tomatoes and onions are very good when added as well. And I don't think Barton would be disappointed if you added, cherry tomatoes or onions or anything else to these recipes.
No,
as long as you're eating seafood, I think you're happy. Is that fair?
that is my game. So I'm absolutely with you on this. Like, I'm not a holier than thou anything. And my recipes are meant to meet you where you are. And if you've got some cherry tomatoes or if you have cilantro instead of parsley, great. That's literally fantastic. So, what I love about this particular combination, those of you who've tried it already, just the brightness of the wine and that lemon, how floral and fruity it is, and it comes out and it just brings out the lighter, brighter side of these mussels, which are so delicious just on their own. It's a nice combo. But again, getting back to sort of the beauty of mussels, they are the ultimate choose your own adventure seafood. So have fun with them.
Yeah. How about while everyone's taking a couple more bites? I'm assuming I don't see anybody looking unhappy. Jenny looks as happy as you can be over there. Yeah. How about we hear from Sigrid and we talk a little bit of wine and
Sure.
so we know what we're drinking this evening.
Great.
Sigrid normally would be here with us in a square, but she has decided that her honeymoon is more important to do than to join us, which fine, we'll give it to
we
her.
all support.
Yeah, she's in Sardinia right now, Barton. So
nice.
Yeah, and I was like, what? They don't have internet in Sardinia? You can't, but whatever. So last week we filmed a quick snippet, and I think Aisha's going to throw that up on the screen. So enjoy your mussels, and well, I look really tired. Okay. Hey, Sigrid, how are you?
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. So great news is while the rest of us are learning to prepare seafood with Chef Barton Seaver, you are actually in Sardinia on your honeymoon. So how's the weather? Even though this is 2 weeks from now, how's the weather? Do you have any idea?
It's gorgeous and warm.
Great.
Yeah.
Just very similar to whatever the weather is in Bangor 2 weeks from the day we're filming this.
Exactly.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us about this wine, because you won't be able to be with us on the 17th. Can you real quickly, what are we drinking and why did we select it?
Great. Well, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm sorry I couldn't be here in person. There was just one tiny detail of, a honeymoon in Europe, but we are drinking tonight a Chardonnay, and we chose Chardonnay for a plethora of reasons. One is it's exceptional wine. Two is it goes very well with what we're having tonight for dinner. And three is it's a wonderful wine to have for autumn. And obviously we can do some seafood preparation in the summer, and I might choose something a little bit lighter and a little bit fresher. But I like the way Chardonnay interacts with the autumn season. And this particular style of Chardonnay is perfect. So we're in a small sub-appellation called Puy-Locher, and this is in the Mâcon region of Burgundy. Burgundy runs north to south in sort of the south east region of France, and we're sort of midway down, just a little bit south of midway on the map. And this is an exceptional producer named Marcel Couturier, and I think you guys have a glass in front of you as well. And we just opened this. This style of Chardonnay is a little bit more Bosque pear, like nice ripe pear notes, rather than that sort of vanilla and appley notes that you can get with some Chardonnays, especially from the Mâcon. So the Mâcon is a very interesting geological region, and it has a lot of sort of plunging cliffs and east-facing slopes where we are here. And that's really what Chardonnay likes, is an east-facing slope with some beautiful oceanic or sort of cooler influences of the night that cools the grapes down. So I'm getting a lot of like really beautiful pear and a little bit of honeysuckle on the nose. Which follows through right onto the palate. So I get a lot of more autumnal notes with this, a little bit of spice as well. I'm getting a little bit of sort of nutmeggy things. And this is an organic and biodynamic producer, which I think increasingly we can focus on in the wine industry, especially with a producer of this size. So this is about 27 acres that they farm.
Seeger, there's a little bit of oak on this. It's definitely not an oaky Chardonnay, nor is it a butter Chardonnay. It's more complex than most, but there is just a little bit of oak to it.
Yes. So the majority of producers in Burgundy are going to use some oak. This particular wine is made with 90% neutral oak. So oak barrels that have been used before and have sort of gotten rid of some of that harsh oak flavors, and then about 10% new. Most Burgundian producers are going to use about 10%, if not more, because Chardonnay likes oak. It does. Yeah. It needs to breathe. It's a high acid grape. It wants that that flavor characteristic that really opens it up and creates it to be a little bit more lively on the palate and a little bit softer. So that's what we're getting a little bit of that on the nose here too. And it also, this is a long-lived wine. I mean, these wines can age, even whites, up to 5 to 7 years and still taste great. So they're great wines to put down too. I mean, it's open. Wonderful. Yeah.
And I know you had said to me earlier when we talked about selecting this wine, it's a family-run vineyard, correct?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And how many? Go ahead.
No, please continue.
And how many people did you say? I imagine there's dozens of people working the field and everything else, right? In the 26 acres.
Yeah, there's two. It's Marcel and his son, Osance, and his son came on not too long ago. So it's really just the two of them. It's pretty amazing. I imagine during harvest, there's people that go through Burgundy and you can hire them sort of the way we do with the blueberry fields in Maine. So I'm sure during harvest they have help. Everything is hand harvested. They don't have any mechanized harvesting. And everything is pneumatic pressed, very gently pressed. Most of the stuff that he does is not, there's no intervention. So he's not overly racking, he's not adding anything, any sulfites, all yeast and any fermentation is spontaneous and natural. And then he's not fining or filtering his wines either. So they're just sort of known for being non-interventionist and really clean.
That's great. So a lot of the ways of how we talk about with our food, knowing our farmer and knowing the process they go through and what we're putting in, the same thing goes for the wine here. We know who's caring for the grapes and the vines. We know who's doing the work, and we know, because of their certifications, how they're doing it. So great choice of wine. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely. Fantastic
food.
I wish I could
Um,
have it with you guys there tonight.
I'm sure you're having some pretty decent wine in Sardinia, and
I'll tell you all about it when I get
yeah.
back.
And then, of course, if anybody decides they love this wine, they have to have it. Easterly has it. We can get it into the bistro for people, or we can help them if they choose to buy it somewhere else. We can help them get it there.
Absolutely, yeah.
But excellent. Thank you so much for your time, and I
Yeah.
hope you're enjoying your honeymoon. And we will catch up to you as soon as you get back.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. And enjoy the Puy Loche from Marcel Couturier.
Wow.
I'm watching myself, Barton, and I'm thinking, my God, one, I need to start working out, and two, I look very, very tired all the time. That's scary to me.
Hey, you have a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old. You know what? This is reality, and reality is all like. One thing that we can do is help to normalize like the reality of being a family person. And like my kid was sitting on me during this, during this event. Like that's what it is. And if you're cooking Annie's mac and cheese tonight because that's all you've got in you, then that is deeply okay.
Yeah.
And if you look tired, guess what? It's because you're a parent. So good by you, man.
Just use good butter if you're making Annie's mac and cheese, right? And then we're fine.
I'll tell you, Annie's mac and cheese can be incredibly delightful if you get the emulsion right and you mix in. I always put in a can of tuna into it too, and an oil packed tuna.
Oh, there
if
you
you
go.
get the emulsion right and just add everything in, it's soigné, man.
Barton's over here making me crave Annie's mac and cheese with tuna. So Bart, how long you have 3 books out now? Is that right? For cod.
You must have children and not being paying attention. I actually have 8. So
8. Whoa, wait.
Yes.
You have Cod and Country, American Seafood, The Love
so
of.
for Cod and Country was my first book. That was out in 2010, and then Where There's Smoke, which is actually my very favorite of my books, which is a grilling cookbook, was out shortly thereafter. And then To If by Sea, which is a great book to educate, like that's really on technique around cooking seafood. And then I've got 2 books with National Geographic as part of my role as an explorer with them. And then American Seafood, The Joy of Seafood. And those 2 books were sort of written in partnership. So you have Joy of Seafood in front of you. But I wrote, so I consider Joy of Seafood as the user's guide to seafood. It's almost 1,000 recipes, no pictures, just very straightforward. American Seafood is the owner's manual to seafood. It's highly illustrated. It's a culinary and anthropological sort of history of every species landed in the United States. Incredibly richly illustrated, and I swear at some point I was like Stephen King. I would go back into my little writer's shack, my E.B. White writer's shack, and just write. And at some point I clicked the next link and it said, "Congratulations, you have reached the end of the internet. Goodbye." And I knew it was time to just write the book at that point, but deeply researched and just good for anybody who's interested in seafood across the board and how to think about it. So
I have American Seafood in my office, and I use it so often at the restaurant when we're talking about seafood and we're talking about everything else. The spine is broken on it. So I need to get a new one. Yeah. It looks exactly like that.
That's my copy.
Yeah.
So
I agree that.
Thank you for asking though.
Yeah, this book is amazing because it has like so many great easy recipes to build off of. And that book is great because if you're ever like trying to find information out about an ingredient or a protein, that book has it. And not only does it have like, it's a white flaky fish, it also goes into the history of the fish, where it's farmed, and how to how to prepare, how to serve, how to cut, and everything else. It's Jenny, you should get that for Jeff for Christmas. I think he would really like that. And then as soon as I said that, I remembered you also had the kids book. So that must have been the National Geographic one, right?
Yeah, there's a kids cookbook with National Geographic. And then there's a book called Superfood Sea Greens, which is my contribution to the burgeoning kelp industry here in Maine.
Yep.
So all about seafood, sea greens, excuse me, which is what I call them. Because seaweed is what I got tangled up in when my damn brother threw me into the, low tide line when I was a kid. Like, sea greens? Oh, that sounds delicious. Let's eat those. So tried to dissociate my memories there. So
There you go.
anyway.
All
right. So we got one more dish to cook here.
And these books will be available at Briar Patch. So if you want additional books by Barton, that's where to find them. So let's jump in to scallops.
Yeah. Well, actually, could I just call
please.
out one compliment to myself here, which is from Tanya. So thank you very much that these mussels, you don't even like mussels, but you're enjoying this. Like, that's awesome. Thank you. I'm psyched.
Is that
wasn't to myself, that was to the mussels. So.
Yeah. So we're going to turn to page 353, please. And Aisha, thank you for dropping the link of all of Barton's books into the chat. That's great.
Welcome. And I will add that has links to purchase all of the books directly from, I assume, Barton.
Oh, very cool. Well, aren't you awesome? Thanks, Aisha. I'm going to pour myself a second glass of wine.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the next thing that we're going to be doing.
Glass is never empty. It's still the first glass.
Wow. I like your philosophy. It's good. It is still Monday though. So I'm going to stop here. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is a really fun technique. This is called poêler in French. Poêler is when you butter baste something. And this is a technique that, if you're roasting a turkey at Thanksgiving, you take the fat off the pan, the drippings, and you baste it over the top, etc. This is something that we're familiar with. That fat, those juices, those flavors all concentrate, protect, and seal in moisture, as well as add their own flavor. So with this dish, what we're doing is we're pulling with butter, and the butter is going to add butter solids, deposit butter solids on the top of these scallops, add just this incredibly nutty, rich aroma that's, well, it pairs perfectly with the already buttery rich scallops. But it also helps to create sort of its own sauce. And this is a technique that I'm going to be teaching you with the scallops here, but is as applicable to chicken breasts as it is to salmon, as it is to bluefish, as it is to skin on fish, skin off fish. I imagine Honey Nut Cheerios would probably even be improved with this technique. You'll have to let me know how that goes. So I've got a couple of sprigs of thyme. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get a pan rip-roaring hot. And I've got a 10-inch saute pan here. And I'm going to put it over high heat. And can you all see? Yeah, it's in the background here. You can see. I've got 1 clove of garlic that I've very thinly sliced. I believe the recipe calls for it to be minced or grated. That's fine as well. And a couple of sprigs of thyme. Now, the recipe I know also calls for seafood to be seasoned about 20 minutes ahead of time. Now, this is something that I recommend for almost every protein that I serve. The reason here is that you can use less salt if you use it early, because what happens is that salt draws into the flesh. It becomes part of the dish rather than sitting on top of the dish. And with something like scallops, especially where you're trying to get that browned, crusty exterior hue to it and that texture, salting early really helps. Because what does salt do? Salt is a humectant. It draws moisture to itself. What it also does is it draws water-soluble proteins up to the top, all the same time, beginning to soak the salt into the flesh of whatever you're cooking. So, does it draw moisture out, which does that prevent browning? Yes, but guess what? Then you can just pat it dry with a paper towel if you've seasoned it ahead of time. And that takes off that surface moisture and gives it the opportunity to really brown nicely. So I didn't do that. So I'm joining you here today, and I'm just seasoning them with some kosher salt, which is the only salt that I use. And we can talk about that if you'd like. I'm just seasoning them pretty well with that. And then I am adding in a little bit of butter into a very hot pan. Is it a hot pan? Yep, sure looks like it's hot, doesn't it? And what that does, the butter begins to brown. Nice brownness to it. Can you even see that? I don't think you can, given the light. So that butter is already the color of what I want those scallops to be. Now I add those scallops. And by the way, one thing is that I actually don't think that seafood in particular, and food in general, needs to be so heavily browned that it looks like, you know, some sort of Pantone color. No, it should be seasoned with brown, not made to be brown. That brown is texture, it is color, it is a flavor additive. It's where you're changing the color of that scallop and changing the flavor of it. Does it need to be so brown that you don't recognize it as scallop? No. In fact, I think that is kind of against the point, because the scallop that you end up with, if you're so focused on the sear, you're not focused on the quality of the scallop, right? A little bit of sear on there, guess what? You already get all that delicious flavor change and that texture. So you don't need to go much beyond that. Hey, Bob, I'm going to ask you, can you hear me okay if I turn on the fan?
Yeah.
You still hear me
assume.
if I'm talking?
Yes. Yes.
It's not overwhelming? Cool.
No.
Because that will wake up my 2-year-old, because he's going to be like, Dad's making more food. I want it. So,
I
right,
feel like
so-
you. Oh, good. Please.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with a quality ingredient, again, almost less is more. You know, like you don't need to over season, you don't need to overcook it, you don't need to do anything else. Like if you're buying quality ingredients and using quality ingredients, you can do less to it in the pan and just treat it with respect, and it's going to be better.
Exactly. Right. And that's almost always the case with seafood. So I'm just sort of, spinning these around a little bit. They're already non-stick. You can see that in the pan. They're just floating around easily.
Barton,
so I've also got some thyme sprigs. And any of you who have not taken thyme off a sprig before, hold it at the top. And then just 2 fingers, 3 fingers, and pull towards the bottom. So you end up with just the leaves. And then you end up with just those leaves up at the top, and those are easily plucked off. Et voila. You were saying, Bob?
No, I was just answering a question in the chat. Yeah, until he just put the thyme in, there was only butter and scallops in the pan.
Yep, only butter and salt on the scallops. So I'm going to turn these over, and in the time that I've been talking to you, they've gotten really brown. So look at that. I mean, they've gotten really nice and brown. Can you see that color? So I don't want to brown them anymore. But here's what I'm going to do. Oh, I forgot to get one important tool here, which is a spoon. So you want a larger spoon, like if you've got a soup spoon kind of thing. All right. All right. You ready for me to watch me about to get sexy here? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to put those thyme sprigs in, thyme leaves in. I'm going to put the garlic in, and then I'm going to put those couple of tablespoons of butter in. And I'm going to take a sip of wine. I'm going to think about and comment on how great this wine is and how delicious it tastes and smells with all that's in my kitchen right now. I'm going to take 1 minute to kind of clean up my area here. Get rid of this, get rid of that. I got a few extra scallops here. There's that. All right. Now I've got scallops. I've got butter. I've got garlic. And I'm going to put those scallops all the way up at the top of that pan. And I'm going to hold it at just a little bit of an angle so the butter and the garlic and the thyme comes down to the bottom. And then watch this. Oh, I'm going to start basting those scallops. And that garlic, all of those. Aisha, can you zoom in? I don't know if you can on me, but
I don't think that I can. My apologies.
Okay, can I do this?
Yes.
All right, and look at that. Garlic on top of those beautifully brown scallops. And I'm taking all of that butter as it collects in the bottom of the pan with the thyme and the garlic. And I'm just spooning it over and over, and those garlic begin to get a little crispy. Those scallops are, all the butter solids are deposited on there. So do this over the heat, preferably, but it works either way. And then turn the heat off. I'm going to go grab a plate. Good Lord, it's my. Hey, Jenny, I'm glad you've got such a great hood over your stove. I bet you've got no smoke in your house right now. So the recipe says to strain off this butter, which is a perfectly good idea, and then save those nice crispy pieces of garlic and the thyme, etc. But honestly, most of those are sitting on top of the scallops anyway. And here's the thing. Yeah, you can strain that butter off, or if you're having a nice rice pilaf or anything with that, you go to a fancy restaurant like Novio's to get a fish seared in brown butter sauce, right? Well, guess what you've got there? You got a delicious brown butter sauce. So look at those scallops.
Looks great.
Can you see that, Bub? Does it?
Yeah, look, those
does
look wonderful.
The color. So that thyme, watch this. Thyme is, you can almost hear it crisping. Sorry, I've got a headphone in, which is why. The thyme is crispy. Those scallops are still perfectly, beautifully spongy, which is the sort of the telltale sign they're done perfectly, that they're just a little bit spongy, sort of elastic, when lightly squeezed. Garlic has just begun to crisp. So you've got this perfect sauce on top of it. So there you go. There's your poêlée scallops with butter, garlic, and thyme. And yeah. And guess what? The wine. It's a perfect combination. There you go.
I see a couple people taking scallops off pans. Jenny's eating. Greg, how's yours? Your screen is off, Greg. I can't see. Charles, Mr. Stanhope. Maddie, Jameson.
I'm loving mine. I started a little bit early, just getting the scallops prepped and the butter melted. And so it's just perfect timing with Barton's conclusion.
Excellent.
Hey, nice. Butter sauce is perfect.
Oh, I didn't show myself. Sorry.
There you go.
I'm not in a very wonderful designer kitchen, but I love mine. And this is me with my flannel shirt.
Awesome. Well, nobody dump your scallops on the ground trying to show the rest of us what you've got. So
only days, no, I can't. I don't know if I can show you. I won't. I'm never gonna try.
Greg, how's yours looking?
Oh, it came out unbelievable. Already scarfed them down.
Already
Oh, cool.
Yeah, didn't add no time. I was eating them, man. They were so good. That and the mussels were incredible too.
I ate most of the mussels.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, good. Good. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed this. I mean, it's fun, and both of these recipes, Bob picked these out of the book, knowing you better than I have. I'm real pleased to meet you here today. But these recipes really represent things that you can do pretty easily on a Monday night, without a whole lot of effort and without a whole lot of ingredients other than what you've already got in your pantry. And that's sort of the point. My role in life, my career mission is I call myself a seafood evangelist. It's my mission to get more people across all demographics eating more seafood for positive public health, environmental, and public health outcomes, and economic outcomes as well. So, and certainly here in Maine, we understand that. So that's how I spend my days. I'm teaching a course now on brain health and nutrition, which is fun. And seafood is obviously a big part of that. Whole grains, a Mediterranean diet, lots of grains, greens, legumes, vegetables, pulses, nuts, and seeds. All the things we know we should be eating. But hey, when it's this delicious, what's to stop us? So appreciate that. And
Barton, can I circle back on something you said earlier? You were talking about the
Sure.
salt, that I only use kosher salt.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about salt here? I know I told you 8 o'clock and would get you off, but if,
we're good. The kids are in bed. Like I got one of them. Like it was actually like, yeah. The
so,
2-year-old was in bed, and the 6-year-old's good. So
awesome. So
thank
salt.
you for. Yeah.
What do you enjoy using, and what should we be using?
All right. You should be using what you are comfortable using. That's that. But use only that. So salting something is the result of a physical memory. When you are salting a scallop, which is a small little, cylinder, whether salting a steak or whether salting steamed broccoli, these are all very different things, right? In our mind's eye, in our spatial perception of something, in our volume ratios that we see, these are all significantly different things. So when we are using a salt that we are familiar with, we are setting ourselves up for success. That when I look at a piece of food, if I am using this red box of kosher salt, guess what? It is the salt that I have been using for 22 years. I know how to season something with this salt. If you give me the blue box of kosher salt, the Morton's brand, guess what? I screw things up. Why? Because every salt has a different salinity to volume ratio. This salt in particular, I like this one because I think it has a low salinity to high volume ratio so that you can feel like you're salting something and you can get it dispersed evenly without much trouble, as opposed to iodized salt, which has very, very small little dense crystals, right? And just a tiny little amount in your fingers is the same salinity as a giant, not fistful, but like fingers full of this. And so I've just gotten used to using this. So I know how to salt anything I see from sight with this salt because I've eaten it tens of thousands of times, right?
Yeah.
If you want the hand harvested sea salt blessed by virgins on the Mount of Olympus that was brought up from the sea by Dionysus herself in the scallop shell that Aphrodite lent to this specific purpose, like fine, great. That's great. You want to pay $40 an ounce for that? Great. But you know what? The seasoning result of it, which is the point of using salt, is a physical memory. So that's what's important to me. So does sea salt taste better? Maybe. Yeah. But it's more variable. And so I've just come to my food is going to taste better when I use the salt that I know how to use. So I'll tell you this, pick whatever salt you like the best and use nothing but that so that you get good at it.
Excellent. And with that being said, I think you have a line of salts.
Oh, Bob, nice transition, man. That was like QVC professional right there.
And watch this. As I'm talking about the line of salts, Aisha just dropped in the link in the chat with 2-year salts.
Wow. All right. I wasn't expecting this.
So
Jeez.
Your salts are really interesting because I don't know if you have any there. I should have queued you up that I was going to talk to you about.
I do actually.
Okay.
I thought you might, but still, I'm impressed with the transition. And that was like nightly news, like level transition, man. That was
yeah. Good. So your salts are kind of fun, and I was thinking about it as we were doing the first one because we were using the Chardonnay. Or you use the Chardonnay in yours, and other people may have used the same or something different, but your salts are designed to complement or contrast with wine pairings. Is that,
Mhm.
am I understanding that right?
Yeah, well, more like compare. So
Okay.
the idea with these wine salts, and these are sold through a local Maine company that we partnered with, Scordo. They've got 2 locations, one in Portland on Exchange Street and one in the Maine Mall. But they're an online family company as well. So you shop scordo.com, I believe it is. Or it's just scordo.com. Actually,
Yep.
you're better than me. Thank you.
That's Aisha. I just sent her a message saying, can we make sure this is ready? And there it is.
There it is. So the idea was that wines have in their varietal character some general types of flavors that they adhere to. And that, on a Tuesday night when I've got kids and I've just got to get dinner on the table and I want something gourmet still, but I'm just facing the reality of getting something out there, that chicken breast seared with a Chardonnay salt on top of it, is something that is going to bring my wine and my food just closer together. Those flavors of Chardonnay or with Sauvignon Blanc, for example, has sea salt, fenugreek, amchur, which is a green mango, lime leaf, dill, onion, and garlic. Like that seasoning just brings the food just that much closer to the whatever Sauvignon Blanc I'm opening.
Yeah.
That night. And it's a way to just do exactly that. Just bring things closer together and make it just that much more interesting. Are they delicious on their own right? Yes, and they have to be. The Cabernet Sauvignon salt has cocoa and deep, rich characters of smoky, sweet paprika and other like warm baking spices that are typical in Cabernets. Like they work. I made a Yankee pot roast with it the other day, and just Cabernet. It was like absolutely delicious, and it's just these fun ways to kind of make life a little more delicious, but also keep it easy. And so thanks for that transition.
And I'll tell you, if once again, like if I think you said it really well. We all tend to cook on a schedule. If you're busy with, your family, or if you're busy with all your nonprofits, or you're busy with work, or you're busy with, grandchildren. I'm trying to think of what everyone can be busy with. Madeline, you're busy feeding 22 animals and caring for everybody, but like different things, like little cheats like that, and I'm going to call it a cheat, and hopefully that's not offensive to Barton.
No, it's perfect.
Little cheats like that in the kitchen is what takes your everyday meal just a little bit tighter, and so to slow you down again, and so you enjoy the whole process of it, the process of cooking it, the process of enjoying it. And if you're cooking for other people, they're also, maybe they're a little surprised, like, oh my God, this has a little more depth to it than what I was expecting. It's in this case, fresh ingredients, a salt that you have paired with your wine, and now you're looking like a hero. So
cool. Well, thanks for that description.
Yeah. Any questions for Barton before we?
How'd everybody do with their butter basting there? Did that make sense? Everybody was safe. I see some head nodding from Josh there. Everybody else is good.
Butter basting worked fine for me.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's a pretty sexy technique. It works across the board. So
Barton, I want to thank you so much for your time and also saving the day. The books weren't in today at Briar Patch, so I drove down and got to see Barton's house in Freeport, and then turned around and drove back here to clean and sort and everything. So thank you for saving the day so everybody had the books. I really appreciate that. We have just some.
I saw one comment here from Gregory and Betty Jameson about let's do one with lobster to help the lobster industry counter the seafood watch. So if I could just comment on that. So I've worked with Seafood Watch for 20 plus years, and I am a sustainable seafood evangelist, and their program is amongst the gold standard. And to Gregory and Betty, they got that wrong. They got this one wrong. And the lobster industry, you're absolutely right, deserves support. And I've been quoted a couple of times, the Boston Globe last week. I ran a story on this, and I've got some op-eds coming up as well about why I still continue to support the Maine lobster industry. despite their red listing. So I appreciate you bringing that up and the opportunity to talk about it, because in this case, we've pit the two most charismatic megafauna of the North Atlantic against each other, seemingly, the right whale, the endangered right whale, and the lobster fishery. And no one is against the right whales, but everyone is, I think, understanding that the complexity that this represents. And I hope that all of you will continue to support the Maine lobster industry, continue to support sensible regulations that lead to the protection of right whales, as well as to an honest and sort of accountable regulations for the lobster industry itself that allow them to continue to be profitable, allow them to continue to thrive, because ultimately they are our neighbors. And the act of sustainability is just that. It's being a good neighbor. If we're thinking about each other, then the ripples we send forth are those that are inclusive and are good and look out for each other. And I appreciate y'all being here tonight to be a part of that. To be a part of my world. Thank you for the invitation to be a part of your world on a charming, beautiful autumnal evening, Monday evening night.
Thank you so much, Barton. If you enjoyed this, please make sure you watch your emails and social media. I have reached out to a mutual friend of Barton's and mine, Evan Mallett,
Nice.
from Black Trumpets in Portsmouth, which is my favorite New England restaurant. I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I do. It's Black Trumpet. It's my favorite place to eat. I think it speaks to me on a lot of levels, and reminds me a lot of Novio's, or maybe Novio's reminds me a lot of Black Trumpet, one of the two, because he's been around for longer. So we're going to do one with him coming up I think in January. And
that's awesome.
Barton, I'm sure you know this name, Joshua McFadden, out of Portland. Joshua McFadden is going to do one Portland, the other Portland, Oregon. He is going to do a book. He was awarded with a James Beard for a cookbook called 6 Seasons. And he is a very talented chef. So we're going to do something with him in the not near future, but after.
Wow. So I'm just the junior varsity warm up. That's awesome. Cool.
No, Barton, you were our first ever wine dinner, our first chef wine dinner. And then because of you, we felt comfortable doing it. And, it's, I will say, if you want to do this every month, I'm on board with it. It's, I have so much respect for you, and,
well,
and
awesome. Well, I was just
kidding.
kidding. Please do say hello to my friends Joshua and Evan. You've got some great talent coming up, so I'm thrilled to be the opening act for them. And again, to all of you, thank you so much for joining. And thank you for supporting Novio's, because honestly, it's as a recovering chef and restaurateur who's been out of restaurants for 11 years, I so commend and appreciate and understand the value that an aspiring, seeking neighborhood restaurant represents. And Bob, you make all our lives better. So thank you for that.
All
right, Joe.
Thank you so much, Barton. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.